Three of the ugliest legends ever to roll off a production line: the Ford Edsel, the AMC Pacer, and the Fiat 600 Multipla. Three very different models, three different eras, and three spectacular design misfires that somehow became cult favorites. Let's start with the first model on our list, the Ford Edsel. In the late 1950s, Ford Motor Company decided it needed a brand new car line to slot between Ford and Mercury. They poured enormous resources into its development, and the result was a completely new model name, Edsel. Under that name came several individual models, like the 1958 Edsel Ranger, Pacer, Corsair, and Citation. But to the public, they all shared one thing: that face. The Edsel's most infamous feature was its vertical, oval-shaped grille. Ford designers wanted something instantly recognizable, a unique brand identity on the road. What they got was a front end that critics compared to a toilet seat, a horse collar, and plenty of less polite things. Flanked by large, round headlights, the grille gave the car a surprised, almost startled expression, as if it knew what people were saying about it. Ford had spent years gathering data on what American buyers supposedly wanted: big power, lots of chrome, advanced gadgets, and dramatic styling. But by the time the 1958 Edsel models hit showrooms, the market had already started to change. Buyers were drifting away from the overly ornate designs of the early 50s. General Motors was smoothing out its lines. Even Chrysler was toning things down. The Edsel arrived, looking like a prediction of the wrong future. The side trim lines were busy and fussy. Some taillights looked like they'd been installed backwards. Inside, there was a rotating drum speedometer that lit up with a space-age glow. The push-button automatic transmission controls were placed in the steering wheel hub, which sounded futuristic but confused drivers and mechanics alike. On top of that, the timing was disastrous. The U.S. economy took a downturn right as Ford launched this completely new model line. The Edsel wasn't cheap, and it didn't have the reputation or brand trust that Ford, Chevrolet, or Plymouth enjoyed. The result: the Edsel quickly became headline news for all the wrong reasons. After only 3 model years, 1958, 1959, and 1960, the entire Edsel brand was shut down. Ford lost a massive amount of money. The Edsel name became a punchline in newspapers and late-night jokes. In the world of business reporting, an Edsel became shorthand for a spectacular flop. But here's the twist. Today, the very same design that looked so awkward in 1958 stands out in a sea of similar-looking classics. That bizarre grille, it's now a badge of honor. At classic car shows, you'll see enthusiasts proudly displaying their 1958 Edsel Corsair convertibles or their Ranger sedans, explaining the history to curious onlookers. Auction results in recent years show clean, original Edsels, especially early models in good colors and rare body styles, steadily climbing in value. What the market once rejected has become a collectible conversation piece. Automotive journalists now routinely refer to the Edsel as so wrong it's right. Its failure story is still news, but now it's framed as a lesson in risk, timing, and the weird way taste changes over time. So the first model in our ugly classics lineup, the Ford Edsel, reminds us that design disasters can eventually become design icons. Next up, our second model and a completely different kind of ugly, the AMC Pacer. If the Edsel looked like it came from the wrong version of the 50s, the AMC Pacer looked like it came from a 1970s cartoon about the future. Launched in 1975, the Pacer was American Motors Corporation's bold attempt to rethink the small car. AMC gave the Pacer a very unusual set of dimensions. It was short and stubby, but unusually wide. They called it the first wide small car. Add to that a huge amount of glass, big curved side windows, a massive rear hatch window, and plenty of windshield area, and from the side the car looked like a bubble on wheels. It quickly picked up nicknames like the fishbowl and the rolling greenhouse. The design details made it even stranger. On many versions, the passenger door was noticeably longer than the driver's door. That asymmetry wasn't an accident. AMC's engineers wanted to make it easier for rear-seat passengers to get in and out from the sidewalk side, especially in crowded cities. Clever idea. But visually, your eyes instantly sense something is off, even if you do know why. At the front, the Pacer had a wide, stubby nose with large circular headlights and a small grille. From some angles, especially in lighter colors, it looked like a startled amphibian. From behind, the huge glass hatch made it look like a giant helmet sitting on a tiny chassis. AMC originally planned to power this futuristic-looking model with a rotary engine, the same basic technology Mazda would later become famous for. That would have matched the styling with some genuinely advanced engineering. But the rotary project fell through, and AMC ended up squeezing in its existing inline-six engines. Those engines were reliable, but they were also heavy and not especially fuel-efficient. So now you had a car that looked like a space pod yet drove like a fairly ordinary mid-70s compact. Add in the 1970s emission systems, and performance was underwhelming. All that glass also meant high cabin temperatures in summer, so owners had to crank the air conditioning, which further hurt fuel economy. Initial reviews were mixed. Some journalists praised the interior space and visibility. Others couldn't get past the looks. The public reaction was equally divided. A small group of buyers appreciated the Pacer's originality, but most people decided it was just too weird. By the late 1970s, even as AMC added woodgrain panels and sportier trims, sales were sinking. Production ended in 1980. For a while, the Pacer seemed destined to be forgotten, one more failed model from a struggling independent carmaker. But pop culture had other plans. In 1992, the Pacer roared back into the spotlight thanks to one film, Wayne's World. The light blue 1976 AMC Pacer, complete with flame decals on the sides and stacks of fast food in the interior, became an instant star. The famous headbanging scene to Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, turned the car into a cult object overnight. Suddenly, younger audiences who had never seen an AMC dealership were asking, "What is that thing?" The answer, again and again, "That's a Pacer." The model name itself became a joke and a badge of honor at the same time. Since then, the Pacer has shown up in TV shows, music videos, and retro-themed ads. Classic car channels and YouTubers routinely feature it in ugliest cars ever made lists, but always with a note of affection. Owners of restored Pacers lean into the oddness, often choosing bright, period-correct colors to highlight the car's cartoonish shape. On the market today, top-condition Pacers, especially early models, or ones done up like the Wayne's World car, now bring far more money than anyone in the 1980s would have imagined. They're never going to rival muscle cars in value, but they sit comfortably in that sweet spot of affordable, recognizable, and fun. So our second model, the AMC Pacer, proves that being ugly and weird can be a long-term advantage. In an era when many cars look interchangeable, the Pacer's bizarre proportions and fishbowl body make it instantly memorable. Finally, we move to Europe for our third model, the Fiat 600 Multipla. When people talk about ugly Fiats, they often jump straight to the late 1990's Fiat Multipla, with its stacked headlights and bizarre front end. But the original 600 Multipla, produced from the mid-1950s to the late 1960s, arguably deserves just as much attention in any discussion of bizarre classic design. Based on the tiny Fiat 600 city car, the 600 Multipla was designed to be a multi-purpose vehicle. Family transporter, taxi, small delivery van, all in one incredibly compact package. The designers, led by Dante Giacosa, had one main constraint: keep it about the same length as a regular Fiat 600, but fit in up to 6 people. The solution was ingenious and, visually, quite shocking. The front axle was pushed almost right to the very front of the vehicle. The driver and front passengers sat over the wheels, with virtually no hood in front of them. The windshield was tall and upright. The headlights sat high and wide apart, mounted on a drooping nose that gave the car a frog-like, bug-eyed expression. The roofline was tall and boxy, rising straight up from the beltline. From the side, the 600 Multipla looked like a small box grafted onto a tiny car platform. The wheels were comically small compared to the height of the body, which made it appear unstable even though the center of gravity was actually quite low. Inside, the packaging was brilliant. The Multipla could be fitted with 3 front seats in a row and a second row behind them, or configured as a small van by folding or removing the rear seats. Given that the whole car was only a bit longer than many modern subcompacts, the interior space it offered was remarkable. In the context of 1950s Europe, the 600 Multipla made perfect sense as a tool. Italian taxi fleets bought them in large numbers. Families used them for everything from school runs to vacation trips. Tradespeople used panel van versions to haul goods through narrow city streets. But hardly anyone would have called it beautiful. Next to sleek Italian designs from the same era, stylish Fiat coupes, Lancias, or early Ferraris, the 600 Multipla looked like the homely cousin. It was tolerated and appreciated, not admired. Over time, most of these cars simply wore out. They were used hard, often overloaded, and rarely pampered. As they disappeared from the roads, they slid quietly from everyday backdrop into the realm of nostalgia. Then, as classic car culture expanded in the 1990s and 2000s, enthusiasts began to look beyond sports cars and luxury sedans. They started seeking out vehicles that told the story of ordinary life: delivery vans, taxis, family wagons. The Fiat 600 Multipla suddenly became interesting again. Old photographs of Rome, Milan, and Turin showed them everywhere. Film archives revealed them in the background of newsreels, parked at train stations, or buzzing past cafes. The model name, Multipla, resurfaced in discussions of automotive history, and people realized how ahead of its time the concept really was. This was a compact people carrier, a multi-purpose vehicle, decades before the term MPV became common. Today, surviving Fiat 600 Multiplas are rare and, in restored form, surprisingly valuable. When they appear at European classic car auctions, they draw strong bidding. Their once-criticized looks are now part of their charm. Owners often repaint them in cheerful two-tone schemes, light blues, creams, and greens, highlighting their cartoon-like proportions. At shows and events, the 600 Multipla is a guaranteed crowd magnet. Kids point and laugh. Adults smile and take photos. Nobody confuses it with anything else. The same frog-eyed face that once made it one of the ugliest models on the street has turned it into a star of classic car news and social media posts. So our third model, the Fiat 600 Multipla, demonstrates how pure practicality can create its own kind of visual awkwardness, and how that awkwardness can age into something irresistibly charming. Looking at these 3 different models together, the Ford Edsel, the AMC Pacer, and the Fiat 600 Multipla, a pattern emerges. All 3 were bold, risky designs. None of them played it safe. The Edsel tried to create an instantly recognizable luxury identity and overshot into caricature. The Pacer tried to reinvent the compact car with unusual proportions and ended up looking like a cartoon spaceship. The 600 Multipla tried to maximize interior space on a tiny footprint and produced a rolling toadstool. All 3 paid the price in their own time. The Edsel's brand collapsed. The Pacer helped confirm AMC's reputation for oddball models. The 600 Multipla was treated as a workhorse, not a style icon. Yet in today's classic car world, these models are constantly in the news, on camera, and on enthusiasts' wish lists. Their ugliness has become their superpower. They stand out in a way most normal-looking cars from their eras simply don't. If you're planning a video or podcast about classic cars, these three models give you a perfect storyline. Automotive experiments that failed in the showroom, but succeeded in becoming unforgettable. The Ford Edsel, the AMC Pacer, and the Fiat 600 Multipla. Three very different models, three different eras, and three great reminders that in car design, being brave and being beautiful are not always the same thing.